All right, Love Thy Neighbor fans, we are here to talk about Season 1, Episode 2, Love Thy Independence. Another 7 out of 10. Thought this was a decent episode. All right, so it starts off a bit opposite compared to Episode 1. You know, it's the next morning. Hattie is actually proud of Danny for getting a job. He's in the kitchen eating breakfast. You know, he's up early as opposed to waking up like at 1 p.m. and whatnot. And man, that does remind me of my jobless years, or at least that jobless summer. And it turns out that Linda is the one who's passed out on the couch underneath the sheets because, you know, she is depressed. It's just that Hattie wants her to get up because she knew Lionel was trash, even though Danny hopes that, you know, Hattie would go a bit easier on his mother. And they go out to the living room and she's not there anymore. So she rushes to change the locks on the doors. All right, so we go over to the job and Drew is happy that Danny's excelling and the fact that, you know, the client was happy with him, gave him he got a bonus, he got a stellar review. But Danny's upset due to the fact that his mom is going through a lot right now. And Drew is a bit, you know, interested in the fact that, ooh, I love men who are close with their mommies. So we got a little taste of who Drew is as a character. And she's so damn cute. True story, I think that Drew and Amanda were both reasons I was tied to both shows. Amanda to the haves and have-nots and Drew to Love Thy Neighbor. She was just so obviously thirsty for Danny that I'm like, wow, I wish I had a girl that was that thirsty for me. So yeah, Drew was definitely bae back in the day for me. Alright, so Sam shows up to the job late, panties in his, you know, pocket square. And turns out that he's a bit surprised, like, oh, Danny, you're doing well, you got a bonus and everything. And Drew warns them, wait, he just wants some money because he's handing out their checks. So turns out Crystal is moving out of the building due to the fact that she didn't know about the fact that Lionel was married and she just wants to get away from the situation. So it turns out that, you know, Sam is a bit behind on rent because this man has a knack for spending all of his money on women and extravagant parties at his apartment. And he asked Danny to move in, that way he won't have to sleep on his grandmother's couch anymore, and he would have his own room. It's a nice apartment. But Danny knows, no, look, you're a party guy, and it doesn't mix well with me. So from there, we go over to the diner. A customer leaves because he got the wrong order, and Hattie's throwing a fit. And Floyd is, you know, talking with her about the situation involving, Linda, because she comes in depressed. It turns out the reason she just disappeared was the fact that, you know, she needed to go out and clear her head, and she's just depressed and she doesn't have a job because she doesn't have any experience because Danny's father and then Lionel wouldn't let her work. They just took care of her. And, you know, not to sound heartless, but yeah, Hattie, this just shows the generational gap because one reason that, like, my generation and, you know, generation before me, there's like an absence of nurturing to an extent emotionally wise. And, you know, in recent years, it's finally been a conversation in the black community about mental health awareness that it doesn't help when you are trying to confide in someone and they belittle your situation by saying, well, back in my day, we didn't have depression, or back in my day, we just moved on in this. But that's not how things really work. I mean, back in the day, yeah. I mean, that was how things got done. But when you look at how you turned out, don't you wish you could have done things differently? I mean, just because things were a certain way back in your day doesn't mean that was the right way to handle things. But now it's more of a conversation to work through your feelings as opposed to try to bury them, to repress them until they turn into a health issue. But yeah, in some ways, I definitely am sympathetic to Linda. But on the other hand, it just feels like the way she was treated by her former husbands, well, Lionel and her haven't gotten divorced yet, but, you know, Danny's father died. It just seems like because her husbands, you know, took care of her, she expects those around her to cater to her as well. Like, you know, yeah, obviously your mom, quote unquote, doesn't like you or your son or basically anybody to freeload off of her. But, it's just one of those things where, yeah, just because you're going through something doesn't mean you could just, you know, squat. But then again, that is your family. But hey, it is what it is. So, she gets a phone call, and Floyd and Hattie go back and forth about whether or not she's on the phone with Lionel and if she's going to go back to him. So she actually ups and leaves the diner. Now Sam is showing Danny the apartment, and it's really nice. And look, I'm in Danny's position, where it's like, look, man, we need to set some rules. Only parties on the weekend and no strange women. And, Danny doesn't want to stay there because Sam doesn't want to abide by those rules. But, he's caught between a rock and a hard place. So he agrees to let Danny move in that day. So Floyd comes in looking for the check, and Danny doesn't, have a check that's cashed yet because, well, apparently Floyd doesn't take checks. But didn't Drew hand him a check in the last episode, or was it an envelope with the money in it? I feel like she handed him a check. Not to mention, didn't he make Crystal go into the back to write a check for her? I mean, for him, but she said, I'm out of checks, but I'll get you the money by the end of the day. So I guess that's a bit of weird continuity there. But I don't know. I guess the only difference is Danny had his work check, so perhaps he needed to put in the bank and then write a check for the rent. So there. It's kind of funny because Danny's like, wait, this is my first day. I just moved in. Like, I just got the keys 5 seconds ago. Well, hell, that's how it works in the real world. What, when you get an apartment, you got to pay, like, what, the first month of rent and then another month in advance or some bullshit like that. So yeah, and Floyd's like, look, he a party animal, but me and my other roommate, RJ, the one I had for 5 years before I moved back home, like, we had a conversation at what was it, the food court in the mall. Like, we just sat down, kind of, to feel each other out in terms of, like, hey, here's the kind of person I am, we don't go into each other's rooms without asking, that kind of stuff. So yeah, we kind of had that kind of one-on-one to make sure we were compatible. That's it, compatible as roommates, and it worked. But when it comes to Danny, it's like, yeah, I definitely wouldn't have moved in with Sam. So yeah, it would have been cool to have my own room, but I mean, you don't know who's been in that room before you. That's all I'm saying. He got these wild parties. All right, so from there we go over to Linda, Floyd, and Hattie. They're in the kitchen at Hattie's house, and Linda is honestly thinking about getting back together with Lionel because of the fact that she has nothing, no money, no job, no work experience. Floyd votes against it because of the fact that he's just going to treat her like crap again, and it's going to send a bad message to your son because Linda's like, no, it would teach my son to forgive. No, it's going to teach him to, just get walked all over. So, and, Hattie apparently just kicks Linda out because of the fact that I didn't raise no, wimp or quitter, and you're just going back to him. But it's kind of like, well, Hattie, it doesn't help that you're constantly kicking Linda while she's down. The fact that you don't want her at the house and whatnot. And, it's like you just simply, what are her options? As you say, it's like you don't want her around, and she doesn't have any job or money or anything like that. So in her position, yeah, I could see why she would just go back to Lionel. I'm not saying it's the right thing, but again, I just like how these characters are written in such a way that I can see both sides of it. All right, so from there, probably one of the funniest lines. I mean, my mom and I still quote this to this day. When Floyd and Hattie go back and forth about how she handled the situation, and it's like, I hate you too. See you at the diner tomorrow. Okay, see you tomorrow. Love you too. Bye. Oh, it was just hilarious. But then the final scene is Danny not being able to sleep because Sam's throwing a loud ass party. And that's the end of the episode. So yeah, I thought this was a pretty decent episode. Yeah, like I said, if these videos do pretty decent, I wouldn't mind watching, a couple episodes every now and then and doing reviews to talk about Love Thy Neighbor. I remember, like I said before, the first season or so I actually enjoyed, but then after that I kind of fell off. I guess because I was in the zone of not watching Tyler Perry shows every week outside of the haves and the have-nots. And, I was working / finishing up college. So, yeah. Let me know. Do you want me to keep doing this show? But like I said, I'm probably going to segue and do other shows every now and then just to kind of test the waters with the audience. So, thanks so much for tuning in. Hit the thumbs up button to show you like the video. Hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.